Do you have a case coming up in immigration court? Or perhaps someone you love, a spouse, a child, a relative, a friend, they have a case coming up in immigration court, and you're wondering what's going to happen in immigration court. And perhaps you're even wondering, can I do this alone? Can we go to court alone? What will be the possible consequences? In this presentation, I'm going to lay out some general points that you need to understand about immigration. This is part one of a multi part series. I am going to be explaining to you some of the things that are going to happen in immigration court in a later video, how you're going to be charged, how you should testify, and what a lawyer can possibly do for you. You will find links to those videos below this video. This is part one of a multi part series of the key points you need to understand about immigration court hearings. So let's get started. Number one, the court is crowded, it's overloaded. The latest statistics show that immigration court nationwide has 1,755,000 cases. And it shows that because of so many cases in the court system, in some jurisdictions, some cities, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, some places in Texas, other places in California, that it's taking over 1,000 days to complete the case from the time the immigrant first steps foot in court. That's over 3 years in some places. So that's point number one that you have to understand. It is going to be, in many instances, a slow process, a long process. Now, there are some cases that will go faster, but the average is over 1,200 days to complete a case. Secondly, when they get to the final hearing, 93% of cases end there. What does that mean? It means win, lose, or draw, the case is over. That people are not challenging it beyond that. That means only 7% of cases are going up to a higher court. And in most of those instances, it would be the immigrant challenging the judge's decision or challenging something the government, a point that the government raised about them. Here's a real crucial statistic. Number three, there are approximately 630 immigration judges in the United States. So do the math. 1,755,000 cases, 630 judges. What does that mean? It means each judge has 2,785 cases that they're supposed to handle. There's only 2,000 working hours in a year. So how much time do you think the judge is going to allocate to a case to really think about it? So that means your case has to be prepared tightly. The information has to pop so that the judge sees it, or they're not going to see the full picture. And that's why, with such a big load and so few judges, that the cases are taking so long. Now, recently, under the Biden administration, there's been some new judges appointed, raising the number to over 600 just recently. And some of those new judges were actually immigration attorneys like me on the side of immigrants. In the past, very, very few of the judges came out of the private sector, were private immigration attorneys defending immigrants. But now, as Biden tries to diversify the bench, as he tries to diversify who are the judges in immigration court, we're starting to see a few judges who come from a similar background, as I said, like me, on the side of defending immigrants. However, what you need to understand is that we are all bound by the same rules. Immigration judges, government attorneys, immigration attorneys. So you're not going to change the rules by simply going to a different judge. What's going to happen, though, is that they're going to be listening to the case in a bunch of different ways, and you don't know your judge's background, and they all have to be fair. Unfortunately, all are not. I mean, that's been my experience. And even some attorneys on my side may end up being a lot stricter as a judge. Of course, on my side, we've seen a lot of things too, so we sort of know how cases work. But anyway, that's point number 3, that immigration judges have to handle 2,785 cases per year. Of course, they're not going to hear all of those per year. That's why it stretches out. Now, of all cases that go to immigration court, point number 4, 92% require interpreters. There are over 100 languages spoken at immigration court. So think about that. You're an immigrant defendant called a respondent in immigration court, and you're dealing with a court system in a culture that you're not that familiar with, in a language that you don't speak at all or very much. And the rules are strongly against immigrants in many cases. So put all that together. Do you really want to go alone? But we're going to discuss that more fully in a later video. Point number 5, 57% of immigrants, despite those 3 facts I just told you about, go to court without a lawyer. That's like rolling dice. Let me see what happens. Let me try my luck. Just throw it against the wall. 57% of immigrants go to immigration court without a lawyer. Point number 6, and I'll be closing here. Of those that go without a lawyer, 80% will lose. That's what the statistics tell us. Only 20% will win. And usually those 20% are going to be the easier cases, something not as complex as, say, an asylum claim or a domestic violence claim or a TPS claim. It's going to be usually something a lot easier and more simplified, and that's why 20% will survive out of the 57%. Now, compare that with if only 80% lose, if 80% lose, but only 7% appeal and go up to a higher court, possibility that a lot of cases that could have been won may be missed because the legal rules aren't fully understood. And what about cases with attorneys? Well, the statistics are really misleading on that. You know, studies say that 93% of immigrants have some success. Well, what's some success? Does that mean victory? Because if you take a program, say, like cancellation or removal, which I call the last chance defense, we know that the court can only grant 4,000 of those a year. And with 600 judges, that's less than 6 of those that they can grant per year. So how many are they seeing? We don't know for sure. But, and success, what's a success? There are cases where immigrants sometimes win what is called prosecutorial discretion. Their case is closed, at least for the time being, because they can possibly go to the agency, USCIS, to win a green card through a spouse or a child or some similar program. Should they lose that, they'll be back in immigration court. But what I've seen far too often in those instances is immigration lawyers saying to the judge, they could qualify, might be a year from now, but they could qualify to get a green card through a relative. But in those cases, those immigrants, having come in without permission, are going to still have to go home for their interview. And so the paperwork is never processed. And what happens is that those immigrants are in limbo for years. I've had people come to me and have to get their old records for what happened back in 2012, what happened in 2013. And it shows that they received this type of temporary closure to their case. And now, almost 10 years later, they're in limbo. Nothing has happened. They have to go out for the interview. And the court hasn't called them back in, although that's what Donald Trump wanted to do, because they have too many cases. They can't bring people back in. They don't have enough personnel to go through those files and bring them back in. But should something happen with that individual and they go back to court, you can anticipate the judge not being lenient because that person has had years to do what they told the judge they were going to do. And they didn't do it. So those are 6 points that I would like you to know at the beginning of this multi-part series. The court is backlogged. 1,755,000 cases a year. 93% of cases in there. There are only 630 judges, which means there's 2,385 cases per judge assigned. 92% require interpreters. 57% of immigrants go to court without an attorney. And those who go without an attorney, 80% are going to lose. Those are the statistics that you need to know as we begin this series and move on to a second video. When it's posted, there will be a link below this video. With that, good luck. And like I said, if you have a case at immigration court, be thinking very carefully. And I really hope that by the end of this series, you have a better understanding what's in front of you or your friend or a loved one. Take care. Bye. Thanks for watching. Know someone who might be interested in this video? Then please take a moment to like and share it with them. Also, if you would like more videos on immigration, just click on the subscribe button. And here's a little bonus, a short guide that you can download for free by clicking on the link on the description box or the square-shaped image. Plus, if you have ideas for videos you'd like to see, write a short comment below or feel free to contact me at carlos@VitaraImmigrationLaw.com. My name is Carlos Vitara. I appreciate your time and hopefully we'll be talking again very, very soon.